noticed that almost everyone reviewing The Wrath and the Dawn wears red lipstick. I don't. Hey there, it's me Leonie. Today I'm going to be reviewing and comparing The Wrath and the Dawn, A Court of Thorns and Roses, and Cruel Beauty. I noticed that in the last couple of months there is this trope that is becoming quite popular, and that is the girl falls in love with unlovable enemy trope. I love that! And I recently read these three. I recently read these three pretty popular books that also have this girl falls in love with unlovable enemy trope, and I thought instead of reviewing all three of them separately, I'm gonna do a paired review where I also compare them with each other because they're pretty similar. They're also all red. I like that. I like red. So the next time you're in the mood for a girl falls in love with unlovable enemy kind of book, you can watch this video and maybe it'll help you choose which one of these three pretty popular books fits your mood best. I'm going to be doing this review by going through some topics, and those are going to be the plot, the characters, the romance, the love interest, and the writing. These reviews will not contain any spoilers, so you can keep watching the entire video. Yeah! First, I'm going to be doing some quick, really quick synopses on all of these books. I'm pretty sure you already know them, but you know. The Wrath and the Dawn by Renee Ahdieh. This is a retelling of 1001 Nights. This is about this country where the king marries a girl every night, only to have her executed every next morning. And our main character volunteers to be his bride to take revenge on him and kill the king. And then they fall in love. Cruel Beauty by Rosamund Hodge. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling about a girl that has been married to this guy since birth. She has a plan to kill him as well, and then they also fall in love. And lastly, A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This is also a Beauty and the Beast retelling about a girl that accidentally kills a fairy, and as punishment for that, she has to live with the dangerous fairies. But she has a plan to escape, and then she falls in love, just like all the other three. Like I said, these are very similar books, but they're also really different. They just all have different strong aspects and a little bit weaker aspects. I gave A Court of Thorns and Roses 3.5 stars, The Wrath and the Dawn 4 stars, and Cruel Beauty 4 stars as well. First, let's talk about the plot. A Court of Thorns and Roses has some fantasy aspects, including fairies, so if you really like fairy folklore in your books, this is definitely a great one. I do have to say that if you've read 2 or 3 Fae series before, nothing in this book will really surprise you. So I've already read a lot of Fae stories, so almost everything that happened in this book with the courts and the high Fae and the low Fae and the weird festivals, that was not new to me because I had already seen that in a lot of other Fae books. Court of Thorns and Roses, just like the other books, is a romance book, so it does focus a lot on the romance, especially in the first big chunk. Thing is, I personally wasn't really a fan of the love interest in this book, so that's why the first half of the book didn't really appeal to me. I do have to say, A Court of Thorns and Roses is definitely the one out of the 3 with the most action. Especially the last 100 pages of this book are just filled with action and suspense, and it's really good, and it's definitely what saved the entire book for me. So yeah, the plot of A Court of Thorns and Roses was definitely the most action-packed, but not very original in my opinion. Cruel Beauty, on the other hand, is kind of the opposite. There is not much action in this book. It's again mostly romance. Cruel Beauty's strong point is definitely its originality. The plot is unlike anything you have ever read, I promise you. The country is based on Roman culture. There's a very interesting magic system. There's just so many things in this book that will just like mindfuck you. There is aspects of the world building that are just very unique. So if you really want to read a book that has a very unique story, Cruel Beauty is the one for you. Most of the things are not very thoroughly explained. You kind of have to fill in the gaps yourself, so if you're easily confused by plots, you are probably gonna get confused by this one. But if you can keep up with it, it is beautiful. This one doesn't really have a lot of action though. It does have more of a like mysterious suspense aspect. And then we have The Wrath and the Dawn by Renee Ahdieh. This one is definitely the one that is most based on romance. The great thing about The Wrath and the Dawn is that the world has been based on Arabian culture from 1001 Nights, so if you're looking for a story that will completely, you know, take you to another fantasy world, then this one is really great, because I have personally never read a book that is set in Arabian culture, so this was really beautiful to read, and it also has some action scenes, and it also has a lot of romance. It's kind of like, you know, a combination of everything. Now let's move on to characters. In A Court of Thorns and Roses there are very few characters. Most of the story is actually carried by only 3 characters. We have our main character Farah, we have Tamlin, our love interest, and we have a pretty important side character called Lucien, and later on we also meet Rhysand, who is also kind of a love interest. Farah is our main character. She is a decent main character. I thought she was just kind of an average young adult main character. You know, she is fierce and strong and intelligent, and she definitely carried the story well, but in my opinion, again, she didn't really stand out as a character from all the other young adult and new adult books. Also, at times I thought Farah was being really stupid. I mean, there are so many occasions in the book where people tell her to not do something, but she will always do it anyway and therefore get into trouble and stuff, and sometimes I was just like, Farah, don't be so stupid. But overall I thought she was great. As I said, there aren't many side characters, but the ones that are very interesting. My favorite one was definitely Lucien. He was very snarky and funny. There actually are a lot of other characters in this book, only they are never mentioned. I thought that was a little bit of a weak point because there's a lot of things happening. Somehow all these hundreds of people in the castle never really react to anything that's happening. But if you think A Court of Thorns and Roses has very little characters, Cruel Beauty actually only has 2 throughout the entire book. It's just our main character and the love interest. The characters in this book, even though it's only 2 of them, they are very different and unique. I'm gonna use that word a lot for this book, because our main character Nyx is not your average young adult main character. She is pretty much an anti-hero. She is bitter, she can be really mean at times, and she's definitely not super likable or anything, but I thought it was really interesting reading for her point of view. So if you enjoy a little bit of an anti-hero as your main character, you will love Nyx. The love interest is also a super interesting character, but I will get to that later. The Wrath and the Dawn is definitely the one with the most characters. The characters are really, really interesting. Even the side characters are just golden, and they all have their own stories. Even the parents are interesting. And the main character, Sherazade, is definitely one of my new favorite main characters. This is something that I really value. She's a strong female character, but she is a strong female character without ever having to fight or kick some ass, because I feel like most characters are deemed strong female characters because they can fight really well, or because they disregard authority, or because they're rude and stubborn. But Sherazade is really an admirable person. If you're looking for a story with a lot of interesting characters, definitely pick up The Wrath and the Dawn, because I loved all the characters in this book. Next, let's talk about the romance, shall we? In A Court of Thorns and Roses, the romance is leaning more towards new adult romance, so it's definitely not for younger part of the young adult audience. I personally wasn't a big fan of the romance in A Court of Thorns and Roses. I personally find things in books cheesy really, really, really easily, so there were a lot of moments in this book where I would just roll my eyes and be like, ugh. But if you're very quick to roll your eyes at romantic moments, there are a lot of, like, eye-roll-worthy moments in this book, but I know a lot of people actually really loved it, so again, it depends on your taste. Cruel Beauty is, again, a hate-turned-love relationship. I thought this one was done really, really well. It's not insta-love at all. The romance is spread throughout the entire book, and it's like slowly building up. The great thing about Cruel Beauty is that it has something that I miss in a lot of other books, and that is you actually really understand why the 2 characters fall for each other, because in most books it feels a little bit forced, but in this one both characters are very interesting, fascinating, and also pretty flawed, but you just understand why they fall for each other. But this romance also involves a lot of witty banter and snarky comments, which is always very much appreciated by me. Cruel Beauty does have a slight love triangle going on there, but it's only at the beginning and it's pretty quickly resolved. Also, you have to keep going until the end, because the love triangle, it makes sense. I know it's weird to say that a love triangle makes sense, but believe me, it makes sense. And lastly, we have the romance in The Wrath and the Dawn. I thought this romance was slightly insta-love-ish in my opinion, even though I did really like it. Our love interest, Khalid, kind of instantly falls for our main character, and I could kind of understand why, but especially Shahrazad, our main character, the transition between hating him and loving him is really quick, and I didn't quite understand why at one point she stopped hating him. But somehow this book, just the way it was written, it doesn't even matter. Like, it just saves everything. Even though it's slightly insta-love-ish, I still absolutely loved it, and I usually really hate insta-love, but this book was so well done and the romance was so well written that you don't really care. Now let's talk about a pretty important part in these stories, and that is the love interest. So in A Court of Thorns and Roses, we have Tamlin, our High Fae. He is the beast of the Beauty and the Beast story. I'm just gonna say it, I didn't really care about him, to be honest, which is the main reason that I didn't really like their relationship. There's nothing wrong with Tamlin, and that's actually what's wrong with him. There's nothing wrong with him. He is really good looking and really nice and really great and basically perfect in every way. I found him to be a little bit boring, especially given the fact that this is a Beauty and Beast retelling. So I expected, you know, like a beast character, you know, not someone that's absolutely perfect and great. I didn't dislike Tamlin, it's just that I expected something else going into this book, knowing that this was going to be a Beauty and the Beast retelling. In The Wrath and the Dawn, we have Khalid. Khalid is not, well, he's one of those characters I'm just like, I like him as a character, but he's horrible. But also not, but he's horrible. But it's just so great to read about him, and we also get his point of view in this story, unlike the other two. Just having him as a character, as the love interest, just makes the story really interesting without him ever having to be like great and swoon-worthy. And then we have Ignifex from Cruel Beauty. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, so Ignifex is our Beast character. I thought he was really great as a love interest, because he is actually like a beast. Not like literally, but, you know, personality-wise, he is horrible. He's the evil lord of the country. He kills people, he bribes people, he tricks people, he manipulates everyone. He is definitely a beast. Yes, he is described as being really handsome, but his eyes are demon eyes, so if you look at him, it's really off-putting because his eyes are so out of this world and creepy, so you also wouldn't say that he's like very attractive to look at. The thing with Ignifex is that he's one of those really witty, snarky characters, and that's what made me love him so much. And lastly, let's shortly talk about the writing. ACOTAR was written by Sarah J. Maas, and if you have ever read anything by Sarah J. Maas, you know that her writing style is just really beautiful and really good. You can't really say anything about Sarah J. Maas's writing other than that is really beautiful. I do have to say one thing, I don't know if it's just me, but somehow every time I read a Sarah J. Maas book, I can't read it fast. I don't know what it is, but her writing makes me read really slow. Cruel Beauty was written by Rosamund Hodge. Rosamund Hodge's writing just gives a very mysterious air to everything, makes everything a little bit like whimsical and eerie, so that really added to the atmosphere of the entire story. And then The Wrath and the Dawn was written by Renee Ahdieh. A lot of people have been saying that her writing is very beautiful. That is true, but I do have to say that even though it was really beautiful, I sometimes had the idea people don't talk like this, you know? I mean, it's said really beautiful, but if you just talk like someone, they won't say that. So it felt a little bit unrealistic at points. So that was my review of all 3 of these books. If I should summarize it, I would say that Court of Thorns and Roses is the book you should pick up if you want more action and a little bit more of a steamy romance. Cruel Beauty is definitely the winner when it comes to unique storylines and originality. And The Wrath and the Dawn is absolutely great if you feel like reading a book that will completely suck you into this fantasy world with all their characters and their cultural influences. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you read any of these books and what you thought about them. And if you know more books that have a girl falls in love with unlovable enemy trope in it, let me know, because I'm always in for that. And I will see you in my next video. Goodbye!